Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Byrne from Deborah Byrne Psychology Services, known across social media as DBpsychology. And this week, I'm going to talk about creating habits, creating routines, which are become habits in our lives. So there are many benefits, and I'm going to go into that. And there's a little bit of what I consider preparation, and I'll also discuss that. So the first thing is, well, why do we want to create morning routines and evening routines? For the very simple reason, it really keeps us organized. It keeps us on track, and we need to get out the door. We need to get the kids out to school, maybe, or we want to, get to work on time, or maybe you just want to fit in a little bit of extra into your morning or into your evening routine. So having a set routine, particularly Monday to Friday, is vital for doing that, particularly if you want to improve your success. So let's get into some of the benefits. Some of the benefits, as we know, are it aids in building the life you want. If you look at most very successful business people, successful in many walks of life, the one thing that they do have in common, and it has been researched, that they all have very structured routines that they have in place, that they keep in place, and this helps them stay on track and meet their goals. So if you want to, and this is the time of year when we've been setting goals and creating new habits, then that is the one thing you can do for yourself, is to put in a more structured morning routine and a more structured evening routine. So if you wanted then as well to put in a little bit of self-care, you can do that without causing the guilt. So having a good morning routine and having a good evening routine allows us to reduce our guilt about putting in things we want, and then it also allows us to develop new habits. So if, for instance, you decided, when we talked about habits I think it was last week, that we wanted to incorporate some of those new habits, like exercise, or maybe even just getting a bit of meditation in there, or we wanted to put in some journaling, then we have a lot of time to it. We have a set, a lot of time in the morning or maybe in the evening to do that. As I've talked before, journaling is a great way to wind down in the evenings. So, putting it there right at night time is a good idea. It also allows us to review our priorities, because when we create these routines, we can actually sit down in the first place and decide, well, what should be done at that time in the morning and what should be done in the evenings. But then we go on to say, realize how much we're actually trying to cram into our lives, and maybe it's time to reduce that in some way. And the other thing, which has been well studied, is having structured routines like this allows us to reduce what's known as decision fatigue. Now, decision fatigue happens when we have too many decisions to make. So if you already have the tasks that you need to do on a schedule, then it reduces that fatigue. It reduces that the amount of energy that your brain needs to decide what's going to happen next. So if you have routines, if you like, are very structured to-do lists. So in order to get that to-do list done, we structure it out using these morning and evening routines. Now you can create further routines for when you're in work, or maybe if you're a stay-at-home parent, your kids have gone to school, and you have a routine that you do set days, set times that you do certain things at. So creating little mini routines for different parts of the day has great benefits for us, not just for the morning and the evening. So what do we do first? Well, the first thing I would suggest is actually a bit of preparation. And I have a number of questions that that you can ask yourself in preparation of this. But the first thing I would do is I would track what I'm doing for 2 weeks. So make a list of every task. So if you have a little notebook, or just even if you already have a diary or somewhere, but write them down. I would advise you to write them down so you can actually see them right in front of you. Maybe lay it out, Monday to Sunday, and do it for 2 weeks, and keep a list of everything you do on the Monday and everything you do on, the Tuesday, Wednesday, and so forth, right through to the Sunday, and see exactly what you're trying to fit in the mornings and what you're trying to fit in the evenings. Lay it all out, and then ask yourself, am I a lark or an owl? This is going to be important. A lark is somebody who is better in the mornings than they are in the evenings, and the same with an owl. An owl is much better, much more awake in the evenings than they are in the day, in the morning time. So that would be important to decide, are you going to fit in, are you going to get up a little bit earlier in the morning and fit something in, or are you somebody that can stay up a little bit later and fit whatever it is you want to fit in then. The other thing, of course, will be, have you got kids? How old the kids are? Are you a stay-at-home parent? Are you working? Are you single? Are you a single parent? Are you a couple? When the tasks themselves, were they just a one-off for the year? Were they monthly? Were they weekly? All those come into the preparation of laying out when you will actually want to do these things. So there's quite a little bit there you want to take into account. Now, the next step would be then, of course, to sit down and review everything. So you'll need to allot a time to sit down and actually see what you have to do. And the most important thing to do there is to review your priorities. Now, I have a worksheet. It's free. You can get it on my resource pages. I have a link from the blog, which is at www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com, and you can have a look there and see, download the blog, the resource, and it helps you work through step by step. It's a number of pages, and it comes as a bundle. So there are a number of other helpful worksheets in there that you can use to review the priorities, because we all need to take time, and this time of the year, in fact, is a great time to review what I want to do for the next year. Am I taking on, or have I been taking on, somebody else's responsibilities? And sometimes we don't actually realize that. Sometimes we don't realize we haven't been asking our partner for help. Sometimes we don't realize we haven't asking older children to help. Older children and teens are well able to help with housework and household chores. You should be asking them to do it. You're teaching them life skills when you do that. So when you see everything that you actually do, we can see, can we ask for help? Is it somebody else's? And if it is, I hope you're going to hand it back. I hope you're not covering for colleagues in work and doing their work for them, allowing them to take the credit. You're not doing them any favors. You're not doing yourself any favors there. So, there's lots of things there you can do, and the worksheets will help you review those priorities. So the next thing we'll do then is we'll pick which ones that we want to do. We'll decide then whether we want them in the morning or whether it's better in the evenings. Sometimes I have found myself with my children, they're all adults now, but I found that I needed to be very highly organized with them, and the little bit of preparation in the evening was better than that rushing around in the mornings. So if we had our bags by the door, if we had our coats by the door, if we had the shoes by the door, if we had the lunches made the night before, it can help, it really does. So that's what I'm talking about, creating a routine there, is you think about what you need to place maybe the night before to help you get out the door in the mornings much more smoothly. If you want to head to the gym in the mornings, then having the gym bag either in the boot of the car, put it in the night before, or having it by the door where you can just pick it up, throw it on your back, and off you go. So a little bit of planning is what we're doing there. So then the final part of all of that, when you've done all your preparation, when you've reviewed the priorities, when you've asked for help, when you've reduced all the workload, will be to write up the actual schedule. Now, I give an example of 2 schedules, one with children and one without children. They're very rough. They really are. They're not set in stone. They were just to illustrate some examples of how you may be able to, create your own routine and what I meant by it. Write up the schedule. And what I would do then is I would stick to that for 2 weeks. Unless something really falls apart, I would try and stick to it for 2 weeks. And then I would sit down of a Sunday or your first day off after the 2 weeks, and I would review it and see, did it work? Was there something I could tweak there? And you probably will. And to be honest, you probably will find that for your circumstances, you will have to tweak it. You will have to tweak that routine. And then remember, you're trying to create a habit. So we're going back to what we talked about last week, about creating a new habit. A new routine is a new habit, and everything in that routine is a new habit. So do give yourself time. Do have patience. Yes, you will hit, the stumbling block, but you will succeed if you persevere. And don't try and change too much. Absolutely do not try to change too much. So maybe even just doing small tweaks to your normal routine in the mornings and small tweaks to your normal routine in the evenings may be better for you than making a whole big change. But for somebody else, it may be that they need a complete structure. They've had no structure up to this. There's a few things that I would say to you is you cannot get rid of. You can't, when you're thinking about, well, what can I delegate and what can I not get rid of? You have to think of your basic self-care. So you cannot get rid of your basic self-care. If you think of that then as your starting point for creating the routine, never, ever, ever give up your basic self-care. So the basic self-care, showering, doing your laundry, changing your clothes. You have to eat. So, do not give up breakfast. You shouldn't be giving up your own breakfast. Even if you have got kids, don't give up your own breakfast for, something else. Try and delegate it out into the evening or ask for help. Meditation, exercise, journaling, anything like that I've listed as a very basic self-care should never, ever be, sacrificed to a routine. Things that you can delegate, of course, will be help with meals, help with any sort of household chores, help with the kids' homework, help with if you've got children in the bedtime routine. All of those things can all be you can ask for help with, and there's a whole load of list more of things you could. They're just examples of a few. So I'm going to stop there this morning, and thank you all for listening as always, and thank you, Deirdre, for tuning in as always, and Colette, and everybody that watches in replay, of course. Thank you very, very much, and I will see you again next Saturday morning as always, and I'll say good morning. Thank you.